Welcome. This is the Clean Energy Opportunity Spotlight series. This is a monthly series that my co-host and I, Colleen Unroe, put on, trying to get you the news and latest information about a series of grant programs, technical assistance programs, and anything we think might be helpful to the public about clean energy and energy efficiency. So we are glad to have you with us today. We are going to be getting started on our presentation in just a minute. I did just want to run through a couple of quick housekeeping items. So first of all, this is meant to be very conversational. Please feel free to raise your hand, put questions in the chat. We are going to have Q&A at the end. So probably we will wait for that to answer questions. But, if you just have something totally pressing, feel free, drop it in the chat. We're happy to kind of talk as we go here. We do ask that you do not use AI transcription softwares or any sort of artificial intelligence to enhance the meeting. That is against DEP rules. So we are going to be keeping an eye out for that. If you have that currently turned on, we ask that you kindly disable that for the time being. I wanted to offer a quick note about our October session, which will likely be our last session for the year. Once we get towards the end of the year, Thanksgiving and the holidays, things get a little crazy at the end of the month. So we will probably end for 2025 in October. We had planned tentatively for a topic, but with the sunsetting of the clean energy tax credits coming up at the end of this year, we've decided to change course and we're working on organizing a speaker for that. So as soon as we have that information, we will be posting it to the website and sharing with all of you. So keep your eyes peeled for tax credit information. We're trying to put that together for you. So without further ado, I wanted to introduce today's speakers. First, from our office, the Energy Programs Office, we have Michelle Ferguson. She is our North Central Region Energy Program Specialist for the PA Department of Environmental Protection. She has worked in this position since 2012 and previously held positions with DEP as a solid waste inspector and a recycling and solid waste planning coordinator. Michelle's work with EPO focuses on energy efficiency, including building codes, agricultural energy efficiency, and alternative fuels for transportation. Currently, Michelle is managing DEP's Industrial Assessments Program that we're going to be hearing about today. And we are also joined by Maritza Perez. She's a senior engineering analyst with the Cadmus Group, working remotely from Portland, Oregon. Maritza has been working in the energy efficiency conducting program evaluations and industrial energy audits for the past 3 years. Currently, she serves as the program manager for the Industrial Energy Assessments Program under the direction of DEP. So I am going to be turning it over to them, and thank you all so much for joining us today. And thank you, Michelle and Maritza, for your help with this. So take it away.
All right. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thanks everyone for joining today. And we definitely appreciate the opportunity to showcase our industrial energy assessment program. I wanted to just give a little bit of background on DEP's Energy Programs Office for anyone who may not be familiar with us. We're a little bit of a different program within the agency. You might be more familiar with our programs that do enforcement and compliance work, such as clean water, waste management, air quality. But the Energy Programs Office is the state energy office. So we get funding each year from the Federal Department of Energy to do a variety of initiatives. This slide shows our mission and purpose, and you can see that our mission focuses on things ranging from energy conservation and efficiency to advanced energy technologies, energy security and resiliency, education and outreach, and climate. Our program is tasked with doing a climate change action plan every 3 years. Among other things, our staff also work with the Pennsylvania Energy Development Authority. So we do have a lot going on. Sarah, would you be able, as soon as I do the agenda, then to launch the poll? We had a poll question for everyone, just to get a sense of who's on today. But our agenda today, we're going to talk about the industrial sector. I'll give you just a really brief overview of energy use in Pennsylvania as a whole within the industrial sector, eligibility for this particular industrial energy assessment program. I'll talk about the goals of the program, how to apply, and then Maritza will talk more about what you can expect. So let's move to the next slide. Industrial energy use in Pennsylvania. There are over 16,000 industrial facilities in Pennsylvania. It's a big number. It is the largest energy consumer by sector in Pennsylvania. So about 37% of Pennsylvania's energy use is through the industrial sector. You can see on this little pie chart the other sectors that come close behind, residential and then transportation and commercial, but industrial is the largest. So we really see this program that I'm going to speak about today as an opportunity with so many facilities and the large energy use. It's really another tool in the toolbox for the industrial sector. You think about so many of your costs are not controllable. You can't control costs of supplies or things like tariffs, but can have just a little bit of control over energy costs. So that's what we want to delve into a little more. Sarah, I apologize because I can't see my other screen, but do we have the results of the poll?
Yeah, so for
Okay.
the folks that have responded, we've got one
Yeah.
industrial facility, and
Okay.
then folks are the others that responded said that they're in the other category, but a number of
Okay.
people haven't responded yet.
Okay, no problem. That's good. That just gives me a little better sense of who might be on and whether you might apply yourself or maybe share information out with folks who could apply. So, the importance of industry to Pennsylvania's economy, $116 billion annually. It's huge. More than 550,000 people are employed within the manufacturing sector in Pennsylvania, and that comprises roughly 10% of all jobs in the state. Again, just stressing industry is very important to our economy. So, some of the major industrial subsectors in Pennsylvania. You can see here a list of some of the bigger ones: cement and lime production, pulp and paper, oil and gas industry. And then we have a list here in the table of the annual emissions, and that's in tons of CO2. And I'll talk a little bit more about emissions and greenhouse gas emissions on a later slide. So yeah, this chart shows some of the greenhouse gas emissions in Pennsylvania by sector. This is in million metric tons of CO2. And I like to think that there's so much opportunity. It's a lot. The emissions are big. Power plants are still by far the biggest in the state, but there's a huge opportunity here by conserving energy to reduce emissions. And that's definitely one of the goals of this program, is to help with that. So a little bit of background how we got to this point and why we are doing an assessment program. We issued a request for proposals last year, back in April of 2024, to hire a contractor to administer an industrial energy assessment program, knowing the opportunities that exist, the number of facilities, the energy savings that could be realized, we felt like this was a good program to launch. We had a few different proposals come in, and we ended up contracting with the Cadmus Group just about a year ago. So we've been working with them for a year now. And this program is being funded with Federal Department of Energy, State Energy Program bipartisan infrastructure law funding. So the program opened to applications just this past February. Took us just a little bit of time to get things set up and get an application portal created. So in that time, since February of this year, we've received 64 applications. And I want to talk a bit about the eligibility. So eligible facilities for this program, we are targeting small to mid-sized manufacturing facilities with less than 500 employees. I do want to stress that all of these different eligibility criteria are site specific. So if it's a company with more than one location, we are only looking at the facility location in Pennsylvania that wants to be audited through the program. So eligibility includes less than 500 employees. And then we also look at the gross annual sales. Those need to be below $100 million annually. And again, that's for the site location. Also within standard industrial codes 20 to 39. Now, I know a lot of facilities maybe are a little more familiar with the NAICS codes. We are using SIC codes, but there's an easy way to look yours up at siccode.com. If you know your NAICS code and not your SIC, they have a crosswalk that you can find your code. So the other thing, we're looking for facilities that don't have any staff who can do the audit. So if you would have like an energy engineer on staff or somebody who's qualified to perform an energy audit, you would not qualify for this program. And the other thing, we look at violations with DEP or other state agencies. So we run an EFACS check to look at compliance with DEP. And then we also do what's called a contractor responsibility program, CRP check, to look for obligations with other state agencies. And typically, if there is an obligation, it would be with either Pennsylvania Department of Revenue or Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry. Sometimes just a paperwork obligation or sometimes money owed. So those things need to be cleared before we can schedule an audit. Cadmus, who Maritza works with, they did a report for us when we started this project to see how many facilities could potentially qualify for our program. So out of the 16,000 manufacturers in Pennsylvania, over 7,000 meet all of these criteria as far as number of employees and gross annual sales and such. So we have a good pool of candidates. Our goals, this program is providing ASHRAE Level 2 energy audits. ASHRAE is the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers. So ASHRAE is a global organization that sets standards for audits. There are 3 different types. There's a level 1, like a walkthrough audit. There's a level 3 investment grade audit. And then what we're providing is in the middle. It's a level 2 energy audit that provides a good level of detail to help you as a company make decisions about investments. We have enough funding through DOE, through our state energy program funds, to provide up to 200 industrial facility audits through April 30th of 2028. So right now we're actually in the second year of our contract. So by the end of June 30, 2026, we will provide up to 100 audits. That's kind of our halfway point. So through June 30th, we'll be providing up to 100 audits. And Cadmus will also not only be doing audits, but they're also going to do follow-up surveys, which we think is like really important. We don't want these audits and reports to just sit on a shelf. We hope that facilities will implement recommendations, make energy upgrades, and then, so that's another piece of this project is Cadmus will be doing some follow-up surveys to actually find out what got implemented, what sorts of success stories are out there from facilities that participated in our program. And next up, I'm going to turn it over to Maritza just to identify who our team is.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you, Michelle. So I'm Maritza. I'm with the Cadmus Group, and the Cadmus Group is the company that is managing the industrial energy assessment team and providing these audits. So we have a few different partners that are working with us. So the actual team conducting the audits includes engineers from the Cadmus Group, as well as Lehigh University, their Industrial Assessment Center, which the Industrial Assessment Center is another DOE-funded program that is partnered with the university to conduct similar audits. So a lot of them are students that are either in their undergrad or graduate programs, along with professors. We also are working with Penn State, the College of Engineering. There's a small group of students that are working alongside one of the professors that is working at Penn State, and the last one that we have is Energy Infrastructures Partner. They're also known as EIP, and they are doing a lot of the western side of Pennsylvania. But all of these participants, or I guess subcontractors, are sort of targeting different areas within Pennsylvania. Lehigh does have a pretty large presence just around like the northeastern side of the state. So we've been really leveraging those relationships that have already been created and trying to reach a more broad layout of Pennsylvania. Awesome. And then can we move to the next slide?
Yeah. Either one. I can start on this, and then if you have anything to add, Maritza, please do jump in. So it's an online application process, and I just realized I forgot to mention the value. So these are free assessments, but they are valued at around $12,000 would be a good average cost. I mean, a level 2 ASHRAE audit can actually cost even more. So these audits are free, as long as you meet all of the eligibility criteria, and it's a $12,000 value. So we have an online application portal we've created, and when you first go to the website, I'm going to try to go here. See how this works. This is what you'll see, and this website talks more about, the benefits of an assessment, how it works, those eligibility criteria I went over, it talks about on here. And also, there's a couple different places you can click on apply now. You can click down here, or you can click up at the top, apply and sign in. And the first time you come in here, you will do a sign up now. And your email will become your username, and you will have to create a password. But it's pretty easy. I'm not going to go through all of this because since I'm not filling in an application, what'll happen when you leave things blank that are required fields, you will get error messages. So yeah, I think it's quite simple. It walks you through. You'll have to input basic company information, eligibility information, like the size, how many employees you have, your gross annual sales, things like that. And then kind of checking off boxes as far as what sorts of energy are used in your facility. So do you use, of course, everyone uses electricity, but do you use natural gas? Do you use propane, heating oil, other fuel sources? And then you'll also be uploading your utility bills. So that's kind of an important step one for the engineers. For our consultants, is they will do a review of your utility bills. And maybe a question for Maritza, like, how many months of utility bills do you need? And is it okay if they don't have them when they submit an application?
Yeah, so we typically ask for 12 months of bills so that we can see the seasonality of your usage. And we ask that we receive both supply and delivery bills for both, I guess, for any sort of energy stream that you have, whether that's electricity and natural gas, propane, fuel oil, that sort of thing. And all of the utility bills, if you can't get them uploaded to the portal, we also have the program email listed in that application portion. And you can submit the application without uploading the bills and just having an estimated like annual usage. And then you can follow up with an email including all of those bills.
Thank you. Is there anything you would like to add to like the application process?
Yeah, I would just say that we do encourage everyone to reach out if there are any questions anywhere along the application process. I know that technology isn't always the most user-friendly. I have had a few requests to get the application faxed over. If that is something that needs to happen, like we are able to arrange that, and we want to make it as easy as possible for facilities that are interested to be able to apply. So if that means doing it over the phone with myself or one of my colleagues, we're happy to do that as well.
Cool. Thank you. All right. So the other thing besides getting a report full of calculations, recommendations, return on investment, projected energy savings, and cost savings, you'll also get directed to incentives, things like state grant programs that might be applicable for implementation projects. So that could be things like the RISE PA program. The small award track under RISE PA does require an energy audit. It doesn't have to be a level 2 energy audit, but this definitely qualifies for the applications. Look at things like federal grant programs through USDA or DOE, utility rebates and incentives. So you'll get kind of a list of different sources of funding that you can look into that might be applicable for your project. So that's kind of our program in a nutshell as far as the eligibility and the goals and how to apply. Um, I'm going to turn the mic back to Maritza, and she's going to talk a bit about just what to expect. I think it's helpful for you to know what you can expect kind of during and after an audit. So I'll turn it over to you, Maritza.
Yeah, so I did want to just start from the very beginning, so getting the application submitted. So after an application is submitted and all of the site information and at least an estimate of utility bills are submitted, the application will go to the PADEP to run those compliance checks that Michelle mentioned earlier. And we just want to make sure that that's cleared before we get everyone like on the schedule, making sure that we're not wasting anyone's time. And once that's approved, the Cadmus group will reach out to the site to get the site visit scheduled. Typically, it will take anywhere between like 3 and 5 hours. It really depends on how large the site is and how compact everything that we would want to be looking at is within that footprint. And this is really like a full site audit. We're not necessarily looking at things like just lighting or just the HVAC system. We really do like a thorough walkthrough of the facility. And so with that 3 to 5 hours, we usually get on site. We start with some safety information. We always like to ask like if there's any hazards. We will ask about any PPE requirements before we get on site. So during that scheduling time period. And we like to start these audits with a conversation. So whatever staff is available, meeting with us, we like to hear about any areas of concern, any particular areas of interest. So for example, like we've been to sites that have said like we already know like we should be switching to LEDs, like we want to know something that has to do with like our chiller system. So that time really gives us two-way communication to be able to talk about like what opportunities may exist, any issues or systems that may have been tried, like the site may have tried to upgrade or things failed, didn't really work out, didn't seem to pan out, that sort of thing. Like we try and just get a good idea of like what's going to benefit the facility the most. And so we try and take some time to get that understanding before going and just like diving into data collection. So once all of that conversation is completed, we will go out and do the actual audit. And typically we do about an hour-long tour, just going through the process from start to finish. We usually ask that we just go from raw materials to whatever the final product is going out the door. And we try and keep it to an hour just to save time and make sure that we're still doing a thorough job. So this period where we're walking through usually includes us asking questions, the site personnel pointing out the areas of interest that were previously mentioned, really just looking at like the high level, trying to get an understanding of where the big energy users are in the facility. And we usually come back from that walkthrough and do some brainstorming, identifying like what systems make the most sense for us to focus on, and then create data collection plans and go back and collect some site information, whether that's nameplates of systems, operation hours, asking about what the maintenance routines are, that sort of thing. And we like to wrap up the site visit with just a closeout meeting, talking about like what we looked at, any next steps to expect, and like any remaining questions that we may have. And then, so that would conclude the actual day of the site visit. Beyond that, we typically follow up in about a week or two with any questions as we start developing the report. So that might be missed information like operation hours of specific system, any information that during the site visit we said, oh, can we get this? And the response was, we'll follow up in an email in the future, that sort of thing. Maybe it's operational data, access to a BMS system, that sort of thing. And typically after about a month or so, we try and get everything developed, and we'll provide the report to the PADEP for approval prior to sending the full report to the facility. And in that delivery to the facility, once it's approved, we also include a list of incentives that may apply to some of these recommendations. We try and do a good mix of low to no cost recommendations, sort of average, like quick payback, maybe not too much of investment. And then we try and get at least one larger recommendation that's more of a capital project, just so that you can get an idea of like where, I guess, the different options are for still implementing things. Maybe the company doesn't have the funds to do a large capital project, so we like to have the option to do some of the different tiered projects. And I guess one other thing to mention that's included in the report is a general energy map. Something we try and do is pull together like a breakout of the different large systems where the big energy users are. So I think that that can be really valuable in identifying like what systems are going to have the most impact, and if it's something that maybe is surprising to the site, maybe looking at like what different operations can decrease that overall usage. And that's a lot of how we also go through and prioritize the different opportunities that we're recommending. So that's the general layout of the day and a little bit after of what to expect. Michelle, I will hand it back to you.
Yeah, thank you. That's the end of our formal presentation, but certainly want to keep this as informal as possible. So we have time for questions.
Perfect. Yeah, I would welcome folks to either come off mute if they would just like to kind of ask their questions directly. You can also feel free to put that in the chat. While people are thinking about that, I am going to launch a final poll very quickly to just kind of get a sense if we have anybody on the line who is planning to apply. So you'll see that if you are joining from Teams on your computer. As Colleen mentioned in the chat, if you are joining on your phone, you unfortunately don't have access to that right now. But if you are joining us on computer, please feel free to show us your response there. So check that out. Like I said, you can come off mute, put questions in the chat, whatever your preference would be. Feel free to raise your hand as well if it starts getting a little more chatty. Does anybody have anything that they want to jump in with? I know that we have a couple of questions we wanted to make sure to get through as well here. So, but want to give our live audience the chance first. Okay. Well, as people are talking about that, you know, Michelle, you'd mentioned earlier in the call about like putting the application platform together and that sort of thing. So do folks need any sort of online account to be able to apply to the program?
Yeah, so that was the portal that I showed just very briefly. So you'll go to that website, and it's actually industrialenergyauditspa.com. So it's a pretty easy URL, industrialenergyauditspa.com. And that's where you will create that account, establish a username and password the first time. And then once you have that account set up, then you can work to submit an application.
And
Okay.
Michelle, you might want to double check, but I think I put the correct link in the chat if people
Okay. Yeah, I can.
It just
Yeah,
looks
that should be.
perfect. And that link to Industrial Energy Audits PA is on the webpage about the program as well.
It is, yeah, you can find it. And I think if you send the slide deck around, it's in the slide deck, and then it's also on our webpage.
So, and we might have already covered some of this, but I was wondering, what sort of information should people have on hand when they're getting ready to apply?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing facilities seem to not always have handy, you do need your FEIN, your tax ID number, because that is how we run the compliance checks. So it does seem like we get a lot of applications come in that have that FEIN blank or their SIC code blank. And then, as Maritza said, the utility bills, but it's okay if you don't have them. But those are some of the things you'll have to look up beforehand. And then, like Maritza said, I think it was important for her to tell you this is like a 1-day on-site audit. And that's different from the level 3 audits that can be multiple days. So that gives you a better sense of what sort of staff time you're going to have to commit. So it's like 1 day on site, or even half a day, depending on the facility size. And then your time to pull your utility bills and some of your basic company information.
Yeah, and who should generally be present for the audit from the company?
Yeah, I can answer that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so typically we suggest having someone like an operations manager, a shop floor manager, a maintenance tech, that sort of position, but really just anyone who can provide that start to finish walkthrough, and then identifying someone, whether they're on that tour or walkthrough, or it's someone that we ask questions to after, that is aware of some of the specifications of the equipment that we're going to be looking at. So that's typically why we end up interacting with quite a few maintenance techs, but they don't necessarily need to be the ones providing that walkthrough.
Gotcha. And Maritza, generally, how far out are you guys scheduling the audits right now?
Yeah, so it sort of depends on the demand. We try and get sites scheduled within a month or two. Right now, we do have a pretty large influx of applicants that we're working with, but we really just reach out to the site and see what time frame works best for them. And oftentimes, a site has like sort of a period that is a little slower, whether that's summer or winter. So sometimes we reach back out after, like, they submitted an application maybe in November, but they asked us to come out maybe like sometime in the summer. So we just work with them and make sure that we get that communication going as soon as they're interested, but still working with their schedule.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, I'm still not seeing any questions come through in the chat. Again, folks are free to come off mute, raise their hand, anything like that. But I think one big question that might be on people's minds, and if we don't have any others, maybe we'll wrap up here after this, but how does this program relate to our RISE PA grant program for industrial facilities?
Yeah, so the second round of RISE PA is open now, and that's for the small award track. We may not have another medium or large duty award track grant round because that closed on September 5th and was very oversubscribed, meaning we got a lot more applications than we have funding available. But the small award tracks, the intent is to continue those. PennTap is managing the small award track. And yeah, this particular industrial energy assessment program can feed into that because the audit that you get done through us qualifies as an assessment, which is required to apply for the small award track. So it's not your only option. Do want to point that out. There's other programs. You can get an energy assessment through other programs, but if you do come through ours, that absolutely qualifies as an energy assessment. So that's kind of how that works.
Gotcha. Alrighty. Well, I still have not seen anything come through in the chat. We will give it just another minute here in case anybody has any last minute thoughts. But while we're percolating on that, I will just remind you to keep an eye out for the announcement for our October session before we go on hiatus before the new year, which is a crazy phrase to even be saying at this point, but it's coming up already. We have Michelle's contact here. Colleen and I can put our contact in the chat again if you want to reach out to us. I know we put that in there earlier, but for anybody who joined us later who maybe can't see further back, I will drop my email in there right now. If you have thoughts on the series, feedback for us, just general questions about the programs that you are interested in and would like to see funded or need a little bit of technical assistance with, you can always feel free to reach out to us on that front. I'm still not seeing anybody, so I think we can probably call it here. But thank you all so much for joining. Oh,
I
sorry,
did want
Colleen.
to mention one other thing. So for folks who accessed our website to register for this event, we'll have we have all the recordings for previous spotlights that we've done, and we just recently updated our assistance finder spreadsheet. So there's been a lot of changes due to things going on at the federal level, and so the information that is most up to date in terms of what's available, whether it's state, federal, or private sources of funding that might help you with your clean energy projects or energy efficiency, definitely check that out.
Yeah, thanks for the shout on that, Colleen. And also shout out to you for putting in the bulk of the work on that update. I know that was a heavy lift. So thanks for getting that up there. Anything else, please feel free to reach out to us. We are happy to talk to you, and we hope to see you all back here in October. So stay tuned.